It being Thursday, May 9th, 2019, I call to order this meeting of the Easton Economic Development Council. I am Stephanie Danielson. The Vice Chair, Dottie, who is the Chair of the Council, is not able to make the meeting today. The first order, just a reminder, this meeting is being televised. First order of business is acceptance of the minutes from February 14th. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Would you like a few minutes to do so now?
I would take a couple minutes.
That's
So the rails
Yes.
is ready to go. That would be great.
Does that mean anything when it's flashing?
Yes,
Oh.
but I'm not sure. We're not saying anything right now, Wayne. Now the light's off. Are we experiencing technical difficulties?
Try waving at him, see if he...
Hey! That's
Okay,
all tough.
all right. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes for February 14th.
Second.
All in favor? So voted. The next item on the agenda is the Queeset Commercial District Economic Development Strategic Plan Actions and Recommendations. And this is really a review of the public engagement session that we had on March 7th. Thank you to everyone who was able to attend. We had 21 attendees in total. That did include representation from the board, as well as Connor joined us and some members of the Board of Selectmen. But I think that still was a pretty good turnout.
I would agree.
Yeah. And good discussion. We did receive, there were business owners there, several business owners, not as many as I would like, but there was good representation from other commercial entities, like Eastern Bank was there, I think a representative from Mansfield Bank was there, representation from the Old Colony Planning Council, as well as the Metro South Chamber of Commerce and the Easton Chamber of Commerce. And part of the reason I think it's important for those organizations to be there is because they're hearing what the recommendations of the plan are, and there are support agencies and groups that will help the town and the business community to realize the goals and recommendations. So I don't know if anyone else who was there wants to add anything.
I thought it was very well attended. There was a lot of good conversation, a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
I thought it went very well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really clear is we need engagement from the business owners and property owners on some of the more localized improvements and recommendations, and to get their buy-in and support. And there's also a recognition that because that's a state-owned highway, a lot of the infrastructure improvements that would help make it a more walkable community, more inviting to people, not just people from outside the area to walk to, but even once you're in there to walk around, and the need to really engage with Mass DOT and start a conversation. So along those lines, 661 Washington Street, which is the old Korea's Plaza. They've come before the planning board, and the board did vote to issue a special permit for this, at this stage, just the site plan for the new development there. And we received a traffic study that didn't go into a lot of detail on the pedestrian needs, but the recommendation that I made to the board, and I think I know that we'll be acting on, is that they start a conversation. So I think once town meeting's over, I'll talk to Connor, Dottie, and Greg and see if we can get a meeting scheduled with District 5 to go and reignite a conversation we've had a few years back about what we see as improvements to that corridor that are essential to continuing the new economic growth there. And we might even, I might even invite Mr. Walsh along to that conversation. That being said, I wasn't going to go over the plan again with the group. We've talked about it. I do think at subsequent meetings we should look at the recommendations and action items again and start focusing in on what the council can do to start really making progress on many of those recommendations. One of the things we've been talking about, I've been talking with Dottie about, I think we mentioned it when we were reviewing the plan, is maybe doing a quarterly community meeting and try to, again, build some kind of group within the district and the community that can start helping and taking some responsibility and initiative.
Similar to the one that Dale Carrister has
Yes.
done at Five Corners, which has been very successful. So,
Exactly,
yeah, I agree.
exactly. And the great part about that, and we can talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Five Corners, is that they united around the betterments in the district and that impact on them. And they've already started talking about, we want to stay involved. We want to stay involved in the future planning efforts, and if new zoning's being considered, we want to help formulate what that should look like and inform the decisions that the town's making. So, yeah, that's a real good example.
So you said that there were how many commercial property owners that came to the?
I think probably 3. There were 3 that I recognized. There were a couple of people I think may have been property owners. Several people who indicated they would come weren't able to make it. And I even bumped into them afterwards, and they apologized for not being able to. It's really tough when a lot of these businesses, even though the properties are owned by maybe larger real estate holders, the businesses, for the most part, are small business owners, and just getting that time off is difficult. But I think, again, I talked with the woman who owns Papered Back Junction. I stopped by, and she said, just keep me in the loop. People want to be kept in the loop. And again, it's an area I walk whenever we have something going on. I try to get out there and let people know firsthand what's happening.
The plan that's online for Korea's Plaza, the one that's sort of like a horseshoe design, is that still the same one that they presented, or did they change it?
It's not, I wouldn't call it a horseshoe-shaped design, so I'm going
You
to
have
have
the
to
2
say.
buildings, the parking, and then the other building in the back. Is that the one that?
I
Okay.
guess. Just look at the date, because they have the date right on the title, but the most recent plans are up online.
Check
And
it
they're
out.
starting to come. They wanted to do it in 2 phases because they wanted to be able to get the site work done, and they weren't quite there with the architecturals, which are a key part of the approval process with the planning board. They have submitted those. They did submit some drafts of that recently, so you can see those as well. And they'll start a discussion with the planning board on Monday, but it'll have to be an amendment to the current decision. So it'll actually be a formal hearing process. So they'll be back on, so let's see, on the 28th, I think is the date.
And the actual infrastructure is done except for the connections to the owners along 138.
Yes, the sewer, yes, the sewer is installed. Yep,
And connections can start, I think Connor said something about, they could start in June.
yeah,
Doug King finishes
think
up
that's-
whatever he's doing at the wastewater treatment plant.
I think so, yep,
Excellent.
yep. All right, so if there's nothing more on that subject, the next is the Five Corners DIF District Program. We talked about this at the February meeting, and the intent was to have the council vote to support the DIF program. And I think we thought that vote was taken, but we went back and we actually looked at the video, and there was no formal vote. Just because there are people who may be watching, the District Improvement Financing Program is a financing tool that allows the town to designate an area where they're going to invest capital in infrastructure improvements. Those infrastructure improvements presumed to be important and critical to sparking new growth, desirable growth in that district. And the program allows the town to set aside a portion or all of future growth revenues to pay for those infrastructure improvements. And the Board of Selectmen, working with the town administrator's office, is proposing that 50% of the projected new growth revenues be set aside through the DIF program to pay for the sewer, and then potentially other infrastructure projects, including roadway improvements, including traffic management, sidewalks, pedestrian pathways, and like that. So again, the board discussed it at the February meeting, seemed to be in support, but I'd like to entertain a motion to formally support the DIF program.
Motion to formally, as our Economic Development Council, to support the DIF program.
Second it.
All in favor? Bruce. And thank you. Because I didn't realize we didn't take the vote and have been telling people we did, so.
Now it's important that you
No.
get everybody out
Yes.
to the meeting in support of it on May 20th. That's critical.
Seems like a
Yes.
lot of people are going to be at that meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
My informal poll. So it's,
Yeah, there are a couple of important items on the
Say-
agenda.
I would
Yeah.
say yes.
Do you know how that translates to the individual property owner cost? You know, what the average property owner is looking at to hook up cost-wise, and what the diff might actually do
I'm not
for
going to
them?
be able to speak, even though the numbers have been floated for the total cost with the hookup, because the hookup really is more of an individual. It depends on how close you are to the road and how far back they have to come. The projected range is up to 32,000. And it looks like, based on if the diff passes and what we're projecting, and the bid that came in, that it can be reduced to 25,000, which is more in line with what the Queeset district is.
is the state going to get back into picking up more of the tab? Because, I mean, back in the, I think in the early 2090s, like it was either the federal government or the state would get reimbursed a large portion of these kind of improvements for municipalities, and they seem to
Right, I think
have-
it's under the Clean Water Act.
Right, because you're getting rid of all the,
Right. As I understand it, there was a lot of money available for especially subsurface disposal systems, failing septic systems, and getting municipalities on public sewer. We have benefited from that in the way that money comes through and is administered through the state revolving fund. And the town has used that mechanism to help fund some of the construction costs. It also is used to help people through low-interest loans in upgrading their septic systems.
Do you know when
So
that
we do
project
take-
will start?
It's starting the end of June.
Okay.
DPW director is expecting to have the crew mobilized, the construction company mobilized the end of June in the district. We will also be applying for another we will try again applying for MassWorks funding to help with the project as well, which could bring the cost down even more.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. I didn't realize how much the community has to put up as opposed to back, not too
Yeah.
long ago, there was much more support from the state or through federal grants. I don't know how that worked, but yeah, that'll be good. And is this the last sewer district at the town? Because I saw in something that was like 1 through 5, like 2 more districts that were proposed from way back, but maybe
Yeah, I'm going to answer that probably more broadly than you're asking it, because I just had someone call me the other day to ask if there was going to be more, an extension of the downtown district. So the 5 districts are actually quite larger than the areas that have been sewered to date.
connected, right? Okay.
And it's my understanding it's not the intent to fully sewer all those districts, but to sewer the portions that are in most need and where we've been able to realize an opportunity to gain wastewater treatment. So you will recall that that treatment was provided as a result of the public-private partnership with Shovel Works. They agreed to build excess capacity that then provided treatment for the downtown area and some of the critical residential areas that had failing systems. The Queesit project came to fruition because of the development agreement for the 40R project. Doug King agreed to build excess capacity, which the town was able to purchase. And then Five Corners benefited from 2 aspects of that. One was the public-private partnership with Avalon, who paid to bring the sewer main down from Mansfield, and then, of course, entering into an inter-municipal arrangement with Mansfield for that. I can tell you what we're looking at next is the industrial park, and trying to
That would be through
negotiate
Brockton?
with Brockton. They have excess capacity, and it benefits them to sell it. They also have water supply capacity, excess capacity that they're looking to sell
Hadn't
through
heard.
Aquaria. They'd like to be able to leverage that for sewer treatment. Easton just doesn't need the water. We have an adequate and sufficient water supply, so. But that would be the next area. There are several businesses in the industrial park and just outside the park that could really benefit from that treatment and actually expand their businesses, which we would certainly love to see. So on the Five Corners, that project that is slated to begin this spring, it's going to be a 2-summer project. It is going to, as we've talked about before, it will have an impact on traffic in that area. The DPW has been working with Beta on a traffic management plan so that at no point in time will the road be completely shut down. There will always be traffic moving at least in one direction. So their alternate route is going to be Highland Street. That will be receiving a lot more traffic than it's seen in the past. And they're setting up communication mechanisms to continually communicate conditions and receive feedback back so that they can modify the plan if and as necessary. The next item on the agenda was the Board of Selectmen presentation, which I did back, I think that was in February as well, and went over very well, talked about what the board's been working on and able to accomplish, and just updating on the number of new businesses that we've seen in town. And again, many of those are small business owners. but we've seen a lot of those come through for site plan review with the planning board. And then, the last item on the agenda, I thought it would be a good time to go through, and I have copies here, the Economic Development Action Plan from, okay, do I not have, oh, I thought there were enough copies. I'm gonna, that I had enough copies here for everybody already from last meeting. Keith, would you run out and make copies from the copier? Thank you. So what we're handing out is the economic development recommendations, goals, and objectives that were identified as the Envision with the Envision Easton Master Plan. And I thought what we could do is just go through and talk about the items. I've updated a lot of them with the progress that we've made to date, and maybe we can talk a little bit about some of them and start talking between now and the next meeting about what we think the priorities are from this group. While we're waiting, I will just let the board know that Roy Koch informed us. He wouldn't be at this meeting, he won't be at the next meeting, and he is not going to reapply for appointment. His appointment's up this year, primarily because his work requires more traveling than he's done in the past. So there will be an opening on the board, and
Thanks.
anyone who's, if you know of someone who's interested, and anyone in the viewing audience who knows someone interested in sitting on the council, you're encouraged to submit your application. So the first item, we had new business facilitation, the site locator tool, and the code interpreter tool.
I thought that was one-sided, so there's one on the back side of
Seem to have gotten the
So wait
same
a minute, are
front
we
page.
missing?
You're missing the back side, there's like one row on the back side of each person, let's see it.
Oh,
I've only got the first page repeated.
yeah, it is just the first page. Is that it?
I'll share.
But I think mine are all the first page repeated. What do you
That's all I
got?
have, it's the same as you do. I think he's got the actual,
I'm sorry,
Good
I
one.
really apologize for this. I looked quickly at the materials I had for last month and thought I had
he's got
copies
this
of
one with
everything.
very different. than
Right,
mine.
right, okay.
Should I make copies of the real one?
Yes, if you would, please.
You want to make copies of that? And that's-
Yes.
So who's got a good one?
Yeah. Thanks. Scrap.
Oh, this is what it is. This is the action, an action plan we put together
Oh, okay.
a couple of years ago, and then the one that, the other.
Got extras.
Yeah. All right, why don't we can, copies of that, you have copies. Well, while we're waiting, we can go through the plan that was specific to the board. So we had the new business facilitation, the site locator tool, and the code interpreter tool. The code interpreter tool was to quickly and readily to any individual looking to open a business in Easton and understand what uses were allowed, what zone a property was in and what uses were allowed. That was done in conjunction with the site locator tool. That information's out there. If you go out to the website, you can easily see, you can click on a property and you can see what district it's in, and then it will show you what types of uses or businesses are allowed. The site locator tool is intended for property owners and business owners to put their properties that are available online, and it will show up on a map and through a report on the same page.
We have that, yeah.
And then someone, who's interested
Thanks.
in finding a suitable location in town could click on that and get information about the property, the size of the property, whether it's undeveloped and needs to be developed, or if it's an existing structure, an existing building, if it's for sale or for lease. We need to re-engage around this. When we first rolled it out, my assistant at the time, reached out, and I reached out to different real estate brokers and property owners. We did mailings, and there was a little flurry of use and activity and a lot of interest. People said, this is a great tool, we want to use it. The use has really fallen off. So we need to kind of re-engage and figure out how and why and make that more useful. We talked about already the Queesit Economic Development Strategic Plan, and just working on figuring out what the board wants to prioritize and work on. Let's see.
Which one are you on now?
We're on the one-pager, which you actually copied correctly. The one-pager with the one line on the second page. The business support Welcome to Easton brochure, that actually was completed. We do have that brochure. We've updated our page from the Economic Development Council. How to kind of reconfigure the website so that it makes more sense to people who are coming from the outside. I've said this several times that if you work in town, it's really geared well for us to get information, but not necessarily people who are looking for information. Let's see, collaboration with Chamber of Commerce. We are working with them. It's probably time to re-invite Kerry to come to the board to give an update on what they're doing and their activities. Then we had coordinate effort with partners like Stonehill, which has worked out very well. Bruce, thank you for joining us. One of the items we talked about was advocating for connecting businesses to support services such as marketing. I think that's a role that the chambers of commerce provide to different businesses, more so than we would provide. And we have, on our website, we provided more links to different other types of services. So we have links to the chambers of commerce. I have links to the Small Business Bureau. I did have someone from the Small Business Administration come and meet with me, and they kind of advanced their website offering, so we updated that link. And then we have existing businesses through buy local, facade improvement, business investment districts, and placemaking. All things that the board can talk about and maybe take a more active approach in.
Was there, were you able to find if there was any grants available for facade improvement, or is that?
That's a good question. I can look into that more. I know that, so Brockton has a facade program, and it's funded through HUD grants, CDBG block grant, the Community Development Block grants. Because they're like a gateway community, they're a HUD community, we don't qualify for a lot of those type of programs. But I can certainly look into that and see if there's some kind of funding available for block grants.
I've seen in some cities and towns, through the Small Business Association, they'll do like a 5-year mortgage, and they'll give them $5,000, let's say, but the stipulation is they gotta be there for the full 5 years. If they leave, then they have to pay the money back. And
Right.
so there might be something available, might not be, but because some of the businesses are definitely small, and doing the whole front of your business over can be
Right,
a lot of money. So
right. And I think that's something with the Queeset Commercial District, and the recommendations, of course, were that the area can really benefit from a facelift, that a lot of the structures, even though they may be physically sound, they just really are dated and aging out. So what kind of opportunities exist there? And I don't know if that's something a business improvement district can fund or not. That, again, a business improvement district is a district that you'd, kind of like an overlay district, that you impose a surcharge to collect funds. It has a manager of the district, and those funds are used towards improvements, events, activities that draw people to the district and try to provide, increase kind of the customer base, but also make it more attractive if you have vacant buildings, to attract new owners, new occupants for those areas. But while you're doing that, just again, making the area look more attractive to people. So if you're bringing in more traffic and customer base, then it will make it more attractive for someone who wants to purchase a property or move into a new area.
I think Keith was talking about that several meetings ago.
Yeah.
In some other, was it a city or another?
I think there's
town?
one in downtown Crossings. So when they did the Filene's and they rebuilt that, there's, I mean, those are major business, but they all kick into it, and it's a privately run, almost like a 501c type thing.
Yeah.
And they hire guys to walk around with the brooms, and they put in the flower boxes. And what we could get, I think, with if they redevelop 138, and some of the plans were to go from 4 lanes to 2 with a turn lane, but like nice light fixtures and benches.
Yeah, yeah.
And then maybe those business owners could band together and maybe put flower boxes, do things like that, keep it, add a few things that wouldn't normally be provided, but they would have to, buy in and agree to pay some sort of fee,
And I think what Keith was saying, they have, my understanding, because he's mentioned it at another meeting a couple years ago as well, they have properties, the McLaughlins have properties in 2 areas that are business improvement districts, and one just feels like a tax, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of benefit, and one is more effective. And it really depends on how well you structure that management structure and how active they are. because you're right, it can be things like just beautification. It can be holding events. You could have little block parties or festivals that you're bringing people in that, again, just make it feel more welcoming and inviting. So. So again, that was kind of a subset of an action plan from the Envision Easton plan, which is the multi-page. If we want to take a look through this. And there are a number of pages here. I want to go through it somewhat quickly. And if we look at, the first item is establish consensus on geographic areas and identify, then you have objective 1.1. I mean, I think that's been done both through just the master planning process itself and reinforcement of that. We know where those districts are. The town is in the process of investing in those areas like the Five Corners, the Queeset Commercial District, the downtown area. A couple of other nodes that I think really will be more formulated in the future would be areas along 138, and I think the planning board looking at the type of zoning, how you want those areas to grow, and then what type of zoning you want to put in place to support that will become important. A lot of accomplishments. Action 1, create consensus on definition of appropriate regarding what types of physical development and businesses. You know, we have the 661 Washington Street redevelopment, and a lot of what was identified in the Queeset Economic Development Plan, I think we're going to see there. It's not a huge development, but it is a significant redevelopment effort, even in town. And I was just talking with Ed Walsh yesterday, and he was talking about being approached by someone who's looking for some office space. And that's a use that really would be beneficial in that area. I think one of the reasons for doing the economic development plan for that area is because people kept talking about retail in that area. And it's not just retail that you need. Your retail businesses need to have a customer base. And again, that's why McCabe emphasized you need housing, you need residential. So you're building that base, and offices also build that customer base. And they refer to the industrial park as a great captured base if you can draw them out, if you can draw people out. So we've seen progress there. The District Improvement Finance Program, of course, is an investment in the Five Corners District. The Foundry Site Redevelopment Project, which I've talked a little bit about, the developer had a pre-discussion meeting with the planning board 2 weeks ago talking about the concept for redevelopment there. And they're taking advantage of the Compact Neighborhood Overlay District the town passed last year at town meeting. So it's quarter-acre zoning. The maximum building size is 1,800 square feet and a 2-bedroom limitation. So it's really geared towards first-time home buyers, young professionals, and baby boomers who want to stay in town but want less maintenance. The renderings, the designs, I think people will like. Those will be available online very shortly. So we're expecting probably within the next month or so that they're going to come in with their formal application process. But that will bring new residents down to the Five Corners area.
Which section are they right now? I'm having trouble following.
I'm sorry, it's this goals, objectives, and actions.
Yes.
And I'm action 1 under ED1, objective 1.1, action 1.
That's all
And I'm going to jump around quick. I'm just going to,
Bruce,
I am going to breeze through because this is an extensive document.
I think there was something put on the enterprise website about that development.
today, I would
62
expect.
units or
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
And it's really a concept plan. I talked with the reporter earlier this week. He's been very anxious to report on new development in Easton. So,
The two other vacant underutilized sites, are those contiguous to the Foundry Street site, or are they somewhere else? Are those the ones over on Robert Drive, or?
one of them is, and one of them, I believe, is,
Sawmill or saw,
well, that's part of the Foundry site redevelopment. We have had some interest expressed in the Crowfoot Gear property for redevelopment and rehabilitation. I mean, it's really in the formulating stages.
it was never taken by the town, correct?
No.
They didn't
it
want
has
to be
not.
involved in the
It's not been.
Superfund process?
It's not, Superfund is not, it's not a Superfund.
Well, it's dirty, they don't want to take it.
It does have, but there's funding available through Mass Development for brownfield redevelopment, and there's an assessment grant that is available to help interested parties understand what the extent of the contamination is and try to put together a plan and a cost so that they can move to the next phase. And there is some funding available for cleanup. So if we go to the second page and action 1 under objective 1.2, of course, and now this is almost really old news, but in the downtown area, we have 2 new restaurants that are very successful. And I just received a number from Condra Goldrup today indicating that they are employing just under 100 people. So that created new jobs in the downtown area. Granted, probably a large number of those are part-time, but part-time jobs are jobs that high school students need, college students need, working moms. So that was an impressive number to me. Of course, we have the 661 Washington redevelopment. This is talking about prioritizing infill development and redevelopment activities in the sewer areas. And then Avalon, we had 290 residential rental units there. And again, as a result of the sewer, we already have interest in the one of the properties at Robert Drive that you referenced, as well as the Foundry site. And even that triggered the acquisition. The owner of the old Foundry site then acquired the abutting property, which had previously been approved as a 40B project, which is the Sawmill Village. So a lot of good things happening and being triggered from the infrastructure investment. Action 2, we have the DIF district passage is what we're hoping to see happen. Working on a memorandum of agreement with Brockton in the
Do we know what our
park.
water capacity in town is? I mean, do we have a lot of room for more growth?
I am told we do. I don't know exactly what that
Just
is.
wondering.
I've talked with Jack Marshall about that over the years, and he says that, based on what Easton could anticipate for full build-out, that we have an
Well
adequate.
within,
Yes.
Now, the Foundry site, so they bought the other Sawmill Village. Now, does the Sawmill Village, since it was already started the permitting process, how are they going to be assessed for that sewer? Is it assessed as a vacant site, or is it assessed at, it's going to be 62 units, so they got to pay for 62?
It was not assessed as a vacant site, and I.
Wondering how that works.
Yeah, they would, my understanding is that when they're looking at a vacant site, they consider what the most likely use would be based on the current zoning.
So they would either be considered, you know, potentially a commercial facility or the proposal that's on the table now.
Right.
Oh, okay, just didn't know how they did that.
My understanding as well is, let's say they used commercial in the analysis to determine the betterment, and that betterment was assessed, and a different higher use project came in, that they would likely get adjusted for that higher use. It probably wouldn't be in the form of a betterment, but there would be probably like a privilege fee. So on the next page, objective 1.2, increase sewer capacity. We just talked about all of that. The next page,
2.1 or?
yeah, goal ED2 and 2.1.1. This is facilitate new development and support existing businesses. Again, a lot of what we've already seen. We hit a lot of our goals and action items through some of these projects that are occurring. And so this action item, perform a zoning diagnostic, work with existing businesses, landowners to identify zoning that unnecessarily hinder expansion or new development create. So through the compact neighborhood overlay district, also the changes that were made, the Queesit commercial business district zoning, rezoning a couple of years ago, we addressed a lot of that. And the planning board is in the process of contracting with a consultant to look at those even more. Look at mixed-use zoning for the village business district. It's allowed, but exactly what does that mean? It was refined for the Queesit commercial district last year. They want to refine that for the business district, and also look at what mixed use would look like in the Five Corners area. So that's in progress. Okay, we have no updates on the next page. Or the next page, I think we may be getting to. Yeah, so there are a lot of, I have a lot of planned activities under a lot of these. I just didn't have a lot of new updates on that. So any other discussion? You want to delve deeper into any of these items?
A lot of work has been done already.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So ahead of, I was working with Connor recently, and we kind of put together kind of a little story on how much the town has done and the steps it's taken to respond to the need to grow the commercial areas and economic development target areas. And it's really pretty amazing. I think from a day-to-day perspective, some days you get up, you come in the office and you go, well, what have I done lately? What, you know, there's so much to be done, but the town has really done a lot. If you think about the governor's Housing Choice Initiative, when he first made that announcement about that program and that initiative, we were fortunate enough to get kind of the announcement very early, like a couple of days before most people saw it. And in looking at it, I'm just looking at all the initiatives and the metrics that the governor's trying to achieve through that program, and went right to our community planner, Wayne Beitler, and said, when the application comes out for designation, as you know, let's keep an eye on this. We want to get our application in immediately, because we are there. And not that we've accomplished everything, but the town has been planning for housing choice. It's been working very hard to address housing need and workforce housing. And we got our application in very quickly, and we were only beaten out by the town of Littleton, and as being the first to get our designation. And as a result of that, we applied for 2 grant opportunities that have been made available through that program. The first one we didn't get. Wayne is thinking that maybe we can resurrect that at some point in the future, but we did get a grant for $225,000 that's helping to pay for the final engineering designs for the Five Corners district. When I started working with the town, or even a couple years before, the town's affordable housing number, the subsidized housing inventory was 3.05%, and we're at 9.7%. And if the projects that we know are in the queue come to fruition, the town will be at 10%, and that is up to when the new census numbers come in. And we have projects that, again, should be desirable to the town and in the control of the town to keep that number at 10% or get it there shortly after the new census numbers come out, which puts the town, again, in safe harbor and in control over the type of housing it wants. The Compact Neighborhood Overlay District, it's not affordable housing per se, but it meets a housing need that has been identified by the town that just doesn't exist. So very proactive in that regard. Again, that you have a longtime resident of Easton and business owner in the town who is not necessarily a developer, but saw this aging, distressed strip mall and recognized a real opportunity through the advent of the sewer being brought into that area, and purchased it and is advancing a project that is right in target with the goals for the zoning in that district. I think there's just so much work that has been advanced. The 40R district that's moving forward. A lot of communities established 40R districts, but they never moved forward. They never advanced, and ours is underway. So I think, you know, it's really to the town's credit that these projects have moved forward and still maintaining the character of the town. Kind of one of the ones that I'm just looking at that jumps out, we have identified ways to capitalize on the presence of Stonehill, in addition to the proximity of the other colleges. You know, one of the things we talk about is really bringing more of the students and the visitors to Stonehill out into the district and the area. One of the projects that's critical to that is the infrastructure, the intersection improvement at Belmont and Washington Street. And the Doug King, the developer for 40R, is on the hook for that. It's a little later in the project to make that intersection improvement happen. That's another one that I think that we need to communicate strongly to Mass DOT, because the other area that really is important for is the main entrance and being able to cross on foot from Stonehill over to the district.
How much more development's left in that King project? Is there another building yet to be built?
Oh,
or
there are
some
several more.
Several more? Okay.
Yep. Yep. He, the next, so there are, I think, there are 3 key phases, and he has one more building to do in the first phase. And that's 48 residential rental units.
Is that across the bridge all the way in the back, or is that going to be?
No, that's done. That's
all
the
built out on the back.
condominium. It's up front, and this was one of the mixed use. So he had one apartment complex that was wholly residential.
Mhm.
And then the second, a residential mixed use with commercial. And we've been talking a lot with him about how to best configure that. Originally, it was intended to be one building, and now he's talking about breaking it into 2, kind of side by side, and bringing the commercial in on the first floor, which is what was always planned. And we're really anxious to see that move forward, because those numbers, when the project was first approved, all the affordable units were added to the subsidized housing inventory. But the way that works is you have a 2-year period to begin construction, and if you don't, then those numbers drop off. So they've dropped off. When you pull a building permit, they get added back on, and we need those to bring our number back up.
And there's still supposed to be a way, a road going between CVS and the bank to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. He's coming to the board, I think, the end of the month. He's coming before the planning board at the end of the month to just go over the change in the building structure, which I think they'll support. I don't think there's any question it will work. And I know the planning board really wants to push hard on getting that road done sooner than later.
Yeah, I think it'll be good, because you'll have, I mean, I go to that CVS, and it's always filled with kids from Stonehill, so if there's more commercial options right there where they can, not have to cross 138 too many times, I think it'll be
Oh, yeah,
a
the
welcome
folks
addition.
who live in Queesit like the fact that they can walk out of their apartment and down to
Yeah,
CVS.
yeah.
It'll be really nice when it's all done. It really will be.
What's the time frame for completion? Good question.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we'd like to see it just continue to move right along.
We just broke ground on the renovation of the Depot Street Fire Station the other day, so
Yeah.
that's been in planning since 2008, so that's excellent. Yeah.
And that's interesting, because you wouldn't think of it this way. Recently, I sat in on a Board of Selectmen's hearing, and there was a lot of discussion about the school budget and concern over the schools and making sure that Easton maintains the high-quality school system that it has. And one individual speaking said, that's why people come to Easton. And of course, people do select communities based on the school system. The individual went on to say, they don't come because of the DPW or the fact that there aren't potholes in your road system. And in fact, people unconsciously do. When people come to visit your town, those things that they aren't consciously thinking about because it's ubiquitous, really do influence their decision-making. And if you drive to a town and the roads are well-maintained and taken care of, you have a lot of green space, which Easton certainly does, you just generally get a sense of calm, a sense of welcoming and belonging. And the reconstruction of that fire station will actually be part of that. I mean, you think about it, it's not an eyesore, but it's not inviting, it's dated. So that update in and of itself will also add in to the rehabilitation and revitalization of the district.
The people in what is considered Eastondale by the folks who've lived there for all their lives, not South Easton, but Eastondale. They've been waiting for that to happen. And the fact that we have the new engine 12 that was assigned there, that was pretty significant as well. So hopefully by the end of the summer, that will be completed.
What does that project entail?
They're adding a new bay, and they're doing the electrical and the AC, and they're shoring up the base, the floor. They've got to expand the opening so the new trucks can get in there, because when they pull in there now, the newer trucks are higher, and that building was built in 1934, so it's for much smaller.
Yeah, they have to raise the
Yeah.
roof and
The living area upstairs needs renovation. Now that we have male and female firefighters, they have to have two separate, locker rooms, bathrooms, things like that. So, I think the newspaper said $350,000 worth of renovation, something like that.
yeah, I would think so. I would think so. It's a big project. So, all right, it's 5 minutes past 2. Is there any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.